The Colonel David Gardiner house is the other big, expensive gambrel roof 18th century house on Main Street. It's quite a bit older than the Miller house. It was built in 1747. And that seems to be an awfully tight date. It's the date that had usually been associated with the building historically. But some years ago, we had the Oxford dendrochronologists come out to East Hampton. And what they do, and they do it all over the world really, they examine core wood from the original frame of the building and usually can date a building's construction within a couple years. It's the most popular way of dating buildings. And so some years ago, through the Historical Society, through the Southampton Historical Society, and some through other historic groups, we were able to raise enough money to bring these guys out here. They did some work for private people and others for nonprofits, and they were hired by the Ladies Village Improvement Society to examine the core of the frame of the gambrel roof, and that's where we get this nice 1747. It was built by a Gardiner. In fact, depending on how you count the proprietors, he's either the third or fourth proprietor of Gardiner's Island. The David Gardiner home was mostly lived in year-round by David Gardiner. He probably lived a little bit on the summer on the island, but mostly during the wintertime he would have been at what's called the Gardiner Brown House. And it remained in the Gardiner family for years and years and years, and was purchased in 1924 by Winthrop Gardiner. I think it had gone out of the family for a little bit, and he fell in love with the proportions of it, the design of the building, and he was probably highly influenced by what the DeRoses did with the Miller House, and moved it off Main Street, moved it back distance, put in a sunken garden and some other elegant garden features to it, and all that happened in 1924. It's another example of adding additions on and making the building even more colonial than it was when it was built in 1747. So bigger windows downstairs on the outside with panels underneath them, exterior panels, which would not be something you'd find in a mid-18th century house. And the interiors, which we can all go into because it's a shop for the LVIS now, show off some of the best examples of colonial revival design. There's a fireplace in the men's changing or men's clothing room, which has an inset silhouette of colonial figures, and the stairway is beautifully redone. It's interesting, if you go up to the second floor, which is not open to the public, you'll find rooms which have the original 18th century paneling in them. So it's fascinating for a number of reasons. And it's another example which we'll find more and more as we traipse around Main Street of a very enthusiastic and sensitive group, which LVIS is. I mean, one of their desires and one of the things they have done is they have worked with the creation of all of the historic districts, and they've been backers of the historic districts. They keep our trees, they take care of so many aspects. So you can imagine that when there was a fire there and the building was badly damaged, and LVIS was looking for a place that they could have a headquarters rather than rental property on Main Street for their shop, that they took over the total restoration and restoring of the Gardiner Brown House. So it's a prime example of a local nonprofit playing a major role in keeping the Main Street of East Hampton as beautiful as it is. So stay tuned for some more visits to some of the fascinating buildings, great stories of the buildings on East Hampton's Main Street.